worship. And today we're down at the Sundaram Tagore Gallery. And we're going to take a walkthrough of an exhibition by Edith Schloss. And we've got a special treat for you because today we're going to get the curator, Jason Andrew, to talk to us about the show.
Awesome.
Okay.
How much time do we have?
As much time as you need until my batteries run out.
Batteries run out.
Okay, first of all...
What? Go ahead.
Who is Edith Schloss and why do we want to know about her?
All right, Edith was one of these amazing artists, women artists, who was born in the late 1919, and she was very well connected with the milieu of early American artists, 1940s, de Kooning, Edwin Denby. Here
okay.
She found in the Bay of Lierce with her island.
She was also an expatriate eventually and
that's right.
moved to Italy.
Moved to Italy. So we have the beginning of the work here from the early Edith pieces, 1945. This is the first painting that she had in her first one-person show at a gallery called the Ashbury Gallery, which is one of these early galleries, like the Tanager Gallery.
Is that on East 10th Street?
Gallery. East 8th Street for that.
With the same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood, yeah.
And was she studying at the Art Students League when this stuff was happening?
Studying at the Art Students League.
And that was the early 50s?
That was early 40s.
Early 40s.
Okay. 1942 to 43. In 46, she married Rudy Burkhardt, the famous photographer.
Yes.
And they went to, on their wedding, they returned to Rome and Italy and Europe after their wedding. And so Rudy did these wonderful studies of the landscape, studies of the cities that they traveled, and Edith did them in watercolors. His were photographs, she did in watercolors. In Paris, there's a wonderful piece when she was in Paris. They met everyone in Paris except Picasso.
Except Picasso?
That's what she says. They brought hard candy to Brancusi and so, whatever. It's great.
Okay, let's move on through here. And then she, it was interesting because she started out abstract and then she's gone back to figurative work here. This is a beautiful landscape.
She met Fairfield Porter, and Fairfield Porter introduced her to the Maine landscape in Maine, where they would go up in summer.
Is this
from Deer Island?
Okay, is this a portrait of her son? Is that Jacob?
Portrait of her son, Jacob, yeah.
Okay, well, I've known Jacob for years. He was
great filmmaker.
He was involved with some of our friends out in Brooklyn.
Some messy still lives.
So we can start to see that she's sort of transitioning into a little different phase of her career here.
Yeah. Still life becomes much more important and prominent. Kind of her narrates what she wants to paint. These vessels become more signature and emblematic of friends that she knew and conversations she was having.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, okay. Well,
this is early influences. So, of course, a rooftop scene by Rudy Burkhardt from 1947. Parlor drawing by Fairfield Porter.
That is Fairfield Porter.
Jack Tworkoff was a big friend and supporter of her work.
You're a big fan of Jack Tworkoff as well, right?
I am a big fan of Earl Kirkham, kind of an obscure figure, post-war American.
He's kind of an eccentric, an eccentric icon of the downtown art scene at that period.
Not too many people know that the two of them, de Kooning, this is early de Kooning, and Earl Kirkham had an amazing dialogue where Earl Kirkham had this life where he could travel to Paris, so when Earl Kirkham would return, de Kooning would sit him down and drill him for what the artists were making and doing in Europe. Two of her best friends that she met at the Art Students League in the early 40s was Helen DeMott and Lucia Vernarelli. Two of them were nicknamed by John Myers of the T. Bordenage Gallery the Italian Mafia. The three of them would kind of go arm in arm and take over the art world. Daniel Bruceline and Janice Biala were early collectors of de Kooning's work. This actually comes from their collection.
Okay, let's get over to the other side here and start to see some of...
62, she moves permanently to
Italy. And I would consider this, wouldn't you say this is like maybe her first mature work, or?
Yeah, I would think that this, when she arrives in Italy, she, doesn't have a gallery representation. She's really kind of starting to sort out exactly where she is. This is sort of the firming up her interest in the still life and interest in the land, in the sea.
Well, one of the things I think is enjoyable for me is that although these are kind of almost naive,
Very Satine-
childlike, but
Satine-like, yeah.
there's a lot of paint handling that's very reminiscent of the abstract expressionists and people like de Kooning and Pousset Dart.
She was a great writer, and she wrote for Art News in the late 40s and early 50s.
And this is almost recalls maybe a Rothko with the simple kind of horizontal horizon line in there.
Well, she became a writer for the Herald Tribune and went to review a show of Matisse's in 1968 in Paris. And when she came back, she painted this called Back from Matisse.
And she's even doing some collage work.
Yeah, in the late 50s and early
boxes.
60s. She didn't really paint very much, but she made boxes. And this is a homage to Georgette Cornell. That little yellow flower.
Was she a friend of Cornell's?
She was.
Okay.
That yellow bird was given to her by Cornell. And there's an Egan. I know how you're a man of history. The Egan label up there is from Georgette Cornell's first one-person show at the Egan Gallery in 1953.
How about that?
Homage to Georgette Cornell. Sailors and Countrymen, the title of that piece, and David Jones Locker, still life, abstract, be painted, still life.
But now she's
quick,
kind
fresh
of
brush work.
yeah, she's thinning things out, but there's also kind of an echo of somebody like a Cy Twombly.
Sure.
The drawing on the color fields.
Yeah. Yeah. This is called Jacob's Ladder, with the island of Tino in the background with a little lighthouse. She always thought about becoming the housekeeper of the lighthouse, the keeper of the lighthouse.
Beautiful but very simple color scheme there. I like that the shot of the cobalt there in with the cerulean.
Yeah. This is another still life painted with one of the a pigeon, clay pigeon. A lot of these works from the early 70s, she would date the day that she finished them, so they become like these diaries.
Documents of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sweep over this little section here so we can get sort of an overview. Now, is this
we're
into
getting
the 70s?
Yeah,
or?
she moves the studio in the late 80s. In the early 90s, she moves to her studio to Pietrasanta, which is a more flat area in northern Italy. And then the mountains become very signature in the work. This is the Hauppauge Mountains where Michelangelo and Donatello would get their marble.
Pick out their marble.
One of her orgy scenes up here, very fascinated by Greek mythology and history and vessels. And she was very excited when her work got included in an erotic art exhibition in Germany as a 90-year-old lady.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, out of this painting, she says that she painted lovers and killers. So she started adapting this mythology, Greek mythology, and bringing it in. And she thought that abstract work that she grew up with, she became a mature abstract artist at the same time as de Kooning and all the others. And here you can see the mythological figures played out in this linear fashion with the red line, and then you've got those Hauppauge Mountains kind of creating this very gestural background. This is the last painting that she created. This is a series she was working on called Leda and the Swan.
So I can sort of see Leda is the red figure, and we got the neck of the swan coming up there.
Yeah.
So what year was this?
This is July 2011, and she died in December. And then over here is a series of works from the 70s and the 80s. You might remember this was in my To Be a Lady exhibition. That was kind of her reintroduction into New York life here, 2013.
And again, these are still lives, and it looks like some of these things would be maybe on a beach or on your back porch near the beach, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a nice
window.
piece.
Yeah. That's great. That's called May.
Cafe table.
This is Morning Glory. This is one of my favorite. Kind of combining all that gestural abstraction, but then you get to see a lot of her drawing. A lot of the drawing there. A lot of the vessels have stories behind them, and if she was here today, I'm sure she could tell us all kinds of stories.
She really has a sensitivity with the brushwork that's pretty extraordinary. I guess if you've been painting for, what, 65 years,
Yeah, 70 years.
Yeah, you learn a few tricks here and there.
What's so nice is the way she's able to leave a lot of the canvas quite open, or the space quite open.
Yes.
Pockets of.
Let's go in and look at some more of the work by her friends. Oh, this is a Phil Pearlstein watercolor.
Yeah.
It's nice.
You know, they're
Notes and ephemera, letters from friends.
Rackstraw Downs, Elaine de Kooning, Edwin Denby, a letter from Giorgio Morandi up there. Another postcard from Merritt Oppenheim from the late 40s. And then a younger generation who became friends with, like Francisca Woodman.
Oh.
And this is Cy Twombly became her neighbor when she moved to Rome. He lived right down the street. They became friends. So this is another way of sort of situating her work, including some of these works of her friends. This is a postcard work from to Robert Rauschenberg.
Well, okay, so we've got a whole room back here. We're not going to have time to go through all this stuff, but
Neil Blaine is a good one.
it's a very
Really
wonderful
early
collection.
1948, dates back to their early friendship.
Neil Blaine is
21st
still
Street.
around, isn't she? I think she's
No.
got a... Oh, did she pass away?
Elaine de Kooning, Rackstraw Downs, de Kooning from 1952.
Okay, that is a beautiful de Kooning drawing.
Yeah. Will Barnett was one of her teachers at the Art Students League. A black painting by Rauschenberg. Giacometti. Hermine Ford. Stanley Whitney.
Good old Stanley. I saw him here at the opening.
Stanley Whitney. Francisca Woodman. These date to the time when they met. Edith was one of her instructors at the Rhode Island School of Design. They invited her in to do a workshop on Italian contemporary art.
Okay, hold it.
Who else?
Now is the time where we get to let you promote your own things. Tell us about Norte Maar and what your programs you got coming up now.
Sure. Well, Norte Maar is now entering its 11th year. And this is just one of the great exhibitions that we try to pull together, bringing together some of the more historic figures that have been overlooked. So Edith's work. We have a big show that just opened called Between a Place and Candy. It's a show I curated on pattern, repetition, and motif.
Okay.
30 artists, major works, and many of the works were created directly for the show.
Do you think there's a return to the pattern decorative thing that was happening in the late 70s? Is that part of
something
it?
that I've noticed, but there's a lot of, it's an eclectic mix of artists in that, we've got Julia Gleick's pattern ballet film where artists are working within pattern, within movement, so that it kind of expands the idea of what pattern decoration. But we do have Robert Zakanich in the show.
Yes.
He kind of leads. He's our lead. And then in April, we've got the return of our Counterpoint series, where we highlight the work of women choreographers working with a point shoe. That's in April.
Okay.
Thanks,
So if you're
Kate.
running...
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. So that was Jason Andrew and Edith Schloss. Now, does the title have the show have a title?
Yes, it does. Myths, Mountains, and one more. Still Life's Myths and Mountains. There we go.
Still Life's Myths and Mountains.
It's open until next week.
Okay, and the name of the gallery is
The SUNDARAM Tagore Gallery.
SUNDARAM Tagore Gallery.
27th Street.
Okay, and now we say it. Thank you, Kate.